Come closer. You don't need to know where you're going. There's no map to follow, no destination to reach, only a single step to take inward. Toward that quiet place within you where something has been still for a long time, waiting. Life, as you've known it, has taught you to move, to explain yourself, to justify your place in the world. It told you to run, to achieve, to stay ahead. You've spoken endlessly. You've written, argued, tried to convince. And perhaps, deep down, you've sensed that none of it gave you real peace or real power. You were taught to search outside yourself for what was always within, to fill every silence as if it were a failure, to reply quickly as if pausing were weakness. But there comes a time, for everyone, when something breaks in the noise. A new kind of tiredness, a whisper you've never heard before that says, "Stop. Sit. Be still. Listen." That's the moment when possibility is born. Not the kind of possibility your mind can chase, but the kind your soul remembers. The kind that takes root in stillness and grows in the dark. I speak to you with an old voice. A voice that has crossed deserts and oceans, that has watched empires rise and crumble, that has heard prayers under every kind of sky. I do not speak from a throne, but from a stone. Still, grounded, quiet. I speak with the calm of one who has seen how little noise matters, and how much can change when nothing is said. Silence is a strict teacher, but a fair one. It never demands. It waits. Sometimes for years, it watches you chase what keeps pulling you away from yourself. It watches you try to be understood, try to be praised, try to be enough. It does not judge, it does not push, it simply waits. And when you are ready, it opens its arms like a mother. To enter silence is not just to close your mouth. It is to quiet the need to be right. It is to surrender the last word. It is to breathe in the middle of what you don't understand. It is to feel, deeply, that you no longer need to defend, explain, or prove. And right there, in that surrender, true power is born. Not the power that crushes, but the power that guides. Not the power that conquers, but the power that attracts. Not the power that shouts, but the one that transforms. There are eyes that speak without words. There are hands that heal in silence. There are presences that enter a room without a sound and change the air entirely. And there are souls, perhaps yours, that are beginning to remember this forgotten path. The path of the emptiness that contains everything. The absence that reveals presence. The stillness that moves all things. I will not give you solutions. I will not hand you formulas. I will not sell you secrets. I will walk with you, step by step, word by word, silence by silence, through an ancient path. A path that teaches you to stop forcing outcomes, and instead create the space for life to unfold. A path where your energy no longer leaks into noise, but returns to you, centered, grounded, alive. And when you realize that you don't need to say everything, when you can stay silent even when the world around you talks too much, when you can listen without losing yourself, that's when life begins to flow. The right things will come with less effort. The right people will draw near without needing to be chased. Decisions will rise from within, clear as fresh water. This book will not change you. It will help you remember who you were before you tried so hard to be understood. It will guide you back to that sacred place inside you where silence is not emptiness, but your deepest, most alive presence. So stay a little longer. Don't turn the page just yet. Don't rush. Let these words settle in you like warm ash, like wind brushing softly across the heart. You may not understand everything yet, but silence does. It already understands you. And it's been waiting. When you're ready, we'll begin the real journey. Not with noise, but with breath and stillness and space. Just you, your soul, and the silence that will make you whole. Chapter 1. Mastering Inner Silence. Before all else, silence must begin within. Many seek quiet in their surroundings, turning off the phone, retreating into nature, shutting the door behind them. But the most deafening noise does not come from the outside world. It comes from the mind. That endless river of thoughts, questions, fears, stories, comparisons, like a child who cannot sit still, like wind rustling every leaf at once. To master inner silence is to learn not how to silence the world, but how to be still within it, to sit in the center of the storm and know peace. Not because the storm has passed, but because you have stopped feeding it. The journey inward does not begin with control. It begins with awareness. You cannot force silence into a noisy heart. You can only begin to listen. And in that listening, something changes. Slowly, gently, without effort. Sit with yourself. Not to solve, not to improve, just to be. The ancient mystics knew this. The sages of the East, the desert fathers, the hermits and poets, they all spoke of that same moment, when the mind begins to quiet not because it was silenced, but because it was seen. When thoughts are no longer rulers, but clouds drifting across the sky of your being. You are not your thoughts. This truth, once tasted, changes everything. Watch them come. Watch them go. Do not cling. Do not chase. Sit by the river and let it pass. Soon, what was once turbulence becomes rhythm. What was once noise becomes music. And beneath it all, you begin to feel a presence. Constant. Unmoved. Deeper than words. That presence is you. The true you. The one the world has tried to distract you from. Inner silence is not about emptiness. It is about presence. You become more alert, not less. More alive, not dull. You hear more, see more, feel more, because the filters of judgment and noise begin to fall away. The senses return to their natural state. Open, clean, unhurried. This silence is not a trance. It is clarity. You do not disappear into it. You emerge from it. And from this place, your actions begin to change. No longer reactive. No longer rushed. You stop grasping. You stop proving. You begin to act from stillness, from listening. And such action has a power that striving can never match. Imagine speaking only when your words are rooted in presence. Imagine choosing only what aligns with that inner stillness. Imagine letting go of what no longer vibrates with your center, not with force, but with the gentle hand of someone who has remembered their worth. This is the work. But it is not work in the way the world defines it. It is not struggle. It is remembering, returning, clearing away what is not you, so that what has always been you can rise. Do not be discouraged if the noise returns. It will, many times. But now you know there is a deeper place beneath it, a home inside you that no storm can touch. Go there, every day. Even for a few breaths. It will grow. The silence will stretch. It will begin to follow you, even into the noise. You will carry it like a secret flame, like a sacred rhythm beating just under the surface. And when others feel it in you, they may not know why, but they will listen more closely. They will calm in your presence. Because something in you is still. This is the beginning, not of control, but of mastery. Mastery, the kind of mastery that holds nothing tightly and therefore loses nothing. The kind that moves without hurry, speaks without fear, and leads without domination. Let this be the path, not towards silence as an escape, but towards silence as your source. The place where all your power flows from, the place where you meet yourself again, whole, soft, steady, and finally truly at peace. Chapter 2. Listening as a superpower. To listen, truly listen, is one of the rarest things in this world. Many hear. Few listen. Most wait only long enough for their turn to speak. They nod politely while forming their next argument. They hear the sound of your voice but not the weight of your meaning. The world is full of words, but starving for listening. Yet listening, when done with presence, is a kind of magic. It is a soft kind of power that bends no one's will, but changes the room. It is the stillness that invites others to unfold, to drop their armor, to speak truths they did not know they carried. When you listen with your whole being, you become a mirror, a sanctuary. And in that reflection, people see themselves more clearly. This is not passive. This is not weakness. To listen deeply is to give your full attention to another soul, without interruption, without resistance, without judgment. It is to say, without speaking, I see you. I am here with you. You do not need to perform. But you cannot offer that kind of listening until you have met yourself in silence first, until you have sat quietly with your own storms, until you have learned not to interrupt your own emotions, not to argue with your own wounds. Inner silence teaches you to hold space, for yourself first, and then for others. When you listen from stillness, people feel it. They feel it in your eyes, in your breath, in the silence between your responses. They sense that you are not waiting to correct them, not preparing to fix them, not standing ready to disprove them. You are simply with them. This kind of listening brings healing, not because it offers answers, but because it offers presence. And presence is the most precious medicine we have left in this noisy world. Consider this. How many people in your life have truly listened to you, without impatience, without agenda? How did that feel? Now ask yourself, how often do you offer that gift in return? When you listen well, you do not lose yourself. You discover who you are beneath the noise. You begin to understand without needing to agree. You begin to feel what is said between the words, the hesitations, the silences, the trembling truths trying to surface. In the ancient traditions, listening was considered a sacred act. The Lakota elders would listen for hours before speaking a single word. The Zen master might nod and remain silent for days before offering one sentence. The prophets, the seers, the shamans, they all listened first, not only to people, but to the wind, the animals, the stars, the dreams that rose in the dark, because to listen is to open, and what opens receives. That is the key. Listening is not just about others. It teaches you how to receive the world, how to sense what is needed, how to move not from habit, but from wisdom. When you become a true listener, your steps align with timing. Your words carry weight. Your decisions arise from the deeper current of life, not from panic, not from pride, but from truth. Listening slows you down. It draws you out of the mental reflex to react and into the embodied awareness of what is actually here. In that pause, you begin to see. And in seeing clearly, you move with grace. There is no need to rush. Silence creates space, and space reveals meaning. So listen, not just to people. Listen to your body, to its fatigue and its yearning. Listen to the places where you tense up when someone speaks, and ask why. Listen to the dreams that visit you in the night. Listen to the words you are drawn to write but never share. Listen to the patterns life keeps repeating, trying to get your attention. And when someone comes to you with trembling voice, or guarded eyes, or angry words, listen for the pain beneath it. Listen for the child behind the mask. Listen with the patience of someone who has walked a long road and knows that most people are not trying to hurt you. They are trying to be seen. This is your superpower. Not a shield, not a sword, but a stillness so deep, so generous, that others feel safe enough to fall apart and begin again. And in that space, healing begins. Understanding begins. Real connection begins. Not through words, but through presence. And presence is born in silence. Chapter 3: Strategic Silence in Communication. Silence, when chosen with intention, becomes more powerful than speech. It becomes a message, a movement, a rhythm that others must attune to. And in a world addicted to reaction, the one who pauses holds the thread of direction. You may think that silence means giving up your voice, surrendering your place in a conversation. But I tell you, silence is not surrender. It is precision. It is wisdom dressed in restraint. The skilled communicator does not fear silence. They wield it. The immature mind rushes to fill the space between words. It panics in the pause. It believes that whoever speaks last, or loudest, has won. But the wise know this is noise disguised as control. The wise know, When you speak from silence, your words are not only heard, they land. Sometimes, the most impactful thing you can say is nothing at all. There are moments in life, in conversation, in conflict, where silence says everything. Silence can disarm where words would provoke. Silence can invite where pressure would push away. Silence can leave space for truth to rise when speech would only cloud it. It is not about being passive. It is about being present enough to know when your words would serve and when they would only serve you. In tense conversations, silence is a signal. When someone throws anger at you and you do not react, you show them their own reflection. When someone waits for your agreement and you pause instead of pretending, you reclaim your integrity. When someone expects you to rush to explain yourself and you calmly wait, you show that your worth is not up for negotiation. Every pause has weight when it comes from presence. Every held breath becomes an offering of space, where something more honest might arise. The moment you stop needing to fill silence is the moment you begin to use it. I have sat in rooms where people argued for hours, throwing words like stones. And then, I have seen one person stay still, watching, breathing, saying nothing, until the storm passed. And when that person finally spoke, the room changed. Not because they overpowered, but because their silence had been true. It had gathered depth. It had held its ground. And now, their voice emerged like water through cracked earth, slow, clear, and necessary. Learn this rhythm. Speak when your words are clean. When your intentions are not to win, but to clarify. Speak when the silence has spoken first within you, and your voice now comes as an echo of its truth. And if the moment calls for it, say nothing. Let others reveal themselves. Let them fill the space with assumptions or noise. Let them rush. The river does not need to prove itself to the rain. When you master this, you become unpredictable, not in a way that confuses, but in a way that centers. You no longer follow the rhythm of fear. You begin to lead with calm. And calmness in communication is magnetic. It says to the world, I am not here to compete with noise. I am here to bring clarity. And clarity does not shout. So when you find yourself in conflict, or conversation charged with emotion, pause. Let your silence speak first. Feel the room. Feel your breath. Let the silence sweep away what is unnecessary, and only then, if words arise, let them come slowly. Let them be few. Let them be rooted in your center, not your defense. There is power in not reacting. There is power in choosing not to explain. There is power in trusting that the silence itself is enough. And in that silence, others may finally begin to hear themselves, which is often what they needed all along. You will know when to speak. You will feel it, not in your chest, where pride lives, but in your belly, where wisdom waits. Let this be your practice, not to speak more, but to speak from silence, not to control the room, but to command your own center, not to win, but to be true. And as you learn to communicate from this still place, you will see how everything around you begins to adjust. Conversations shift. Relationships deepen. Arguments fade before they begin, because you are no longer adding to the noise. You are becoming the still point around which clarity can form. This is not manipulation. This is alignment. This is not performance. This is power. Let your silence become a sanctuary, for yourself and for others. Let your words be few, but true. Let your pauses become prayers. And let your presence speak louder than your voice ever could. Chapter 4. Silence in Conflict and Negotiation. Conflict is the fire that reveals what is still unhealed. It does not create chaos. It only exposes it. When tension rises, when words clash, when voices sharpen, when the space between people becomes thick with pride or pain, there is an ancient instinct in us that wants to strike back, to prove, to protect, to win. But I will tell you a secret. In conflict, the first one to fall into reaction is the first one to lose connection with truth. And truth does not shout. Truth does not rush. Truth waits. To carry silence into conflict is not to be passive. It is to be so present that nothing pulls you from yourself. Not anger, not accusation, not fear. You do not go numb. You do not retreat. You stay. Silent, yes, but fully awake. Listening not only to what is being said, but to what is being revealed underneath. This silence is not empty. It is full of information. Every pause, every breath, every flicker in the other's voice or body is telling you something. Most people miss it. They're too busy preparing their defense. But you, if you are quiet, if you are steady, you will hear everything. The silence you carry becomes your field of vision. It slows the moment. It gives you the advantage of seeing clearly, while others swing blindly. You'll notice something remarkable when you bring true silence into conflict. The energy in the room changes. People expect resistance. They brace for escalation. But when your silence remains, when it does not tense, when it does not tremble, they become unsettled. Not because you intimidate, but because you are not playing the game they've rehearsed. And now, the power has shifted, not toward domination, but toward presence, toward truth, toward clarity. In negotiation, the same holds true. Whether in business, in love, in daily life, he who owns the pause owns the moment. Those who speak to fill silence often reveal more than they mean to. They rush. They over-explain. They expose their fear or their need. But the one who is silent, comfortably, without tension, waits, and when they finally speak, every word counts. Let your silence become a compass. When emotions rise, ask yourself, must I speak now? Will this response come from clarity or from pride? Will my words build a bridge or a wall? Sometimes the most respectful thing you can do in conflict is to say nothing, not out of avoidance, but out of reverence, for the weight of what is unfolding, for the possibility that silence might cool what heat would only burn. Silence does not mean absence. It means intention. You may choose to hold eye contact, to breathe deeply, to soften your face, even as you stay still. That stillness will do more to shift the moment than 1,000 clever arguments. You do not need to be louder to be heard. You do not need to explain your every boundary. You do not need to meet force with force. Instead, try this. Meet tension with rootedness. Let the other throw their words and let them fall at your feet, not in defeat, but in non-reaction. Let the silence answer. Let the space hold the truth you are not willing to distort with noise. And then, if you must speak, do so slowly, simply, without ornament. From the still place within you that has not been moved by the storm. This is not silence as avoidance. It is silence as alignment. And the more you practice it, the more powerful it becomes. Others will begin to treat you differently. Not out of fear, but out of respect. They will sense that you are not easily shaken, that you do not flinch, that you speak only when your words come from the center, not from the wound. And slowly, the world around you begins to adjust to your rhythm, not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. Let that be your path in conflict. Not the fight, not the retreat, but the still flame that neither flickers nor fades. The one that lights the way through even the darkest conversations. You don't need to silence others. You only need to stop letting them pull you away from your own silence. That's when you win. Not over them, but over the part of yourself that once believed you had to fight to be seen. Chapter 5. Silence and Emotional Intelligence. To feel deeply is not a weakness, it is a gift, but to feel without being consumed, to hold emotion like water cupped in still hands, that is wisdom. Emotions rise like tides. Grief, anger, joy, longing, shame. They do not ask permission. They surge, they crash, they linger. And in the absence of silence, we are swept away by them. We lash out. We shut down. We speak from the wound instead of the heart. But silence, real silence, teaches you to sit beside your emotions, not inside them. You learn to watch a feeling without becoming it. To say, I am feeling anger, instead of I am angry. To witness sadness without dissolving into it. To stand still while the fire burns and let it burn clean. This is emotional intelligence. Not the suppression of emotion, but the containment of it. Not in a cold box, not in denial, but in a space wide enough, quiet enough, to hold it without judgment. When you become silent inside, your emotions don't disappear. They become visible, honest, clear. You begin to see not just that you're upset, but why. You start to notice the shape of your reactivity, the pattern of your defenses, the voices that rise when you're afraid of being hurt. And in that noticing, there is power. Because now you can choose. Faka kosa watmosha brewis omnislak. You are no longer pushed by the old currents. You are no longer trapped in the immediate. You can pause. You can breathe. And in that pause, something new becomes possible. Let your silence become a sanctuary for your emotions, not a prison. Sit with them. Listen to them. Feel them fully without speaking them prematurely. Let them show you what you need to know before you try to explain them to anyone else. There is a sacred difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is fast, loud, impulsive. It wants to escape the discomfort. Response is slow, intentional, born of clarity. It wants to understand. You cannot respond until you have first been silent. And just as you learn to hold your own feelings in this way, so too do you begin to hold others. You start to feel more, not because you're overwhelmed, but because your silence has made you sensitive, perceptive, present. When someone is hurting, you will not rush to fix. When someone is angry, you will not need to defend. You will hear not just their words, but the ache beneath them. This is a deeper kind of empathy. It does not come from sympathy or politeness. It comes from a stillness that sees without needing to be seen, that understands without being told, that stays soft, even when others bring pain to your doorstep. Let yourself become that soft space. Becking, a place where others don't feel judged, hurried, interrupted. A place where emotions are welcome but not worshipped, where feelings can rise and fall like waves. And still, beneath it all, there is calm. This kind of silence doesn't make you distant. It makes you available. People will feel it. They won't always know what to call it, but they'll lean in. They'll feel safe near you, not because you solve them, but because you don't rush to escape them. You've become a mirror, a still one, and in your stillness, others begin to recognize themselves again. Remember, not every emotion needs to be explained. Not every discomfort needs to be soothed. Some things simply need to be held, in presence, in patience, in breath. And that is what your silence offers. A new kind of listening, a deeper kind of feeling, a higher kind of love. This is how silence and emotional intelligence become one. You feel everything, but you are moved by nothing that is not true. You honor every feeling, but you speak only from what is clear. And in this way, your silence becomes a guide, not just for you, but for everyone who comes near you. They feel it, and they begin, slowly, to breathe again. Chapter 6. The Silent Environment. Designing Flow. There is a silence that lives inside you, but there is also a silence that waits to be created around you. One that holds and supports your inner peace like a shell protects the pearl. Most people live in constant noise. Not just the mechanical noise of the world, cars, phones, screens, messages, alarms, but a noise made of interruptions, clutter, overstimulation. Their spaces pull at them. Their attention is scattered before the day even begins. They are not at home in their own lives. They are surviving inside chaos that they unknowingly built. But you are waking up. You are learning that silence is sacred. And now, it's time to extend that understanding beyond your thoughts, into the places you inhabit. Look around. Does your space invite stillness? Or does it constantly demand your energy? A silent environment is not about muting the world. It is about creating alignment between the outer and the inner. It is about choosing, with care, what deserves to live in your space, what earns the right to influence your mood, your thoughts, your nervous system. Because everything you allow into your environment speaks to your nervous system. Every object, every color, every screen, every sound. And most of us have allowed noise to become our default. The television on in the background. The endless tabs open. The clutter that gathers like dust around our intentions. We think we're unaffected, but the body knows. The spirit knows. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It is the presence of intention. It is the shape you give your life. You must begin to curate your environment like a sacred space. Not perfect, not sterile, but alive with clarity. Remove what distracts. Keep what deepens. Let your rooms breathe. Let your eyes rest when you enter a space. Let your body feel safe, not rushed, not invaded by too many signals. Even a single candle in the right place can become a kind of silence. Even a stretch of empty wall can speak of peace. Even the way sunlight touches your table can remind you, this is home. There is no one way to do this. A silent environment does not mean silence in the traditional sense. For some, it is literal stillness. No sound, no motion, just space. For others, it is music that calms. Natural textures, soft lighting, spaces for ritual, for pause, for presence. You must listen to what your soul responds to. You must begin to notice what drains you and what restores you. And you must dare to build your world not for efficiency, but for energy. Even your digital space matters. The devices you carry, the messages you allow, the rhythm of your online life. These too are part of your environment. Most people never log out, never look up, never clear the space between one stimulus and the next. But you can. You must. Not as a rejection of the world, but as an offering to your spirit. Design flow. Don't chase it. You don't need more apps. You don't need more productivity systems. They tease. You need less noise. More room to feel. More room to think slowly. More room for breath to return to its natural rhythm. When your environment supports your silence, everything else flows. Decisions become clearer. Energy is no longer wasted. The mind rests, not out of exhaustion, but because it has permission to rest. And then, a beautiful thing begins to happen. You no longer seek peace only when you are overwhelmed. You begin to live inside it. Your home becomes an extension of your soul. Your rituals become moments of stillness woven into the fabric of your day. You light a candle not to escape, but to remember. You close a door not to shut out the world, but to meet yourself again. You move slowly through your space because your life is no longer something to get through. It is something to be in. This is what it means to design flow. You shape the silence around you until it begins to shape you, not into someone quieter, but into someone clearer. Not into someone who does less, but into someone who does what matters, from a place of alignment. Let your life become a space that reflects who you are becoming. Let your environment become a sanctuary for your silence. Let your choices become simpler, and your days more meaningful. Because in stillness, things don't stop moving. They begin to move with you. Chapter 7. The Flow Principle. aligning with what matters. There comes a point on this path where you stop trying to make things happen. Buhay. You stop pushing. You stop grasping. You stop chasing outcomes, applause, validation. Not because you've given up, but because you've learned to listen for something deeper. This is the beginning of flow. And flow cannot be forced. It reveals itself only when you become quiet enough to hear it. You see, most people are taught to work against life, to wrestle it into shape, to chase success like prey, to control every detail out of fear that if they stop striving, they will disappear. But this kind of effort is brittle. It breaks. It burns out. Because it is disconnected from truth. The flow of life does not move in straight lines. It moves in spirals, in seasons, in rhythms too subtle for the anxious mind to grasp. To align with it, you must slow down. You must begin to feel the difference between force and momentum, between pushing and being pulled. Silence teaches you this, not all at once, but gradually. Like a stream cutting a path through rock, you begin to notice that some things come with ease. Not because they are easy, but because they are right. They are connected. They move toward you without strain. You begin to feel the quiet sense of yes in your body, long before your mind can explain it. And you learn to trust that signal, to trust the space between events, to trust that the life meant for you is not hidden in noise, but in alignment. The deeper you go into silence, the more obvious it becomes. There are things you've been doing out of habit that no longer hold meaning. There are people you've been holding on to who no longer walk in rhythm with your soul. There are goals you once set in fear that no longer fit the person you're becoming. And so, little by little, you let go. Not in bitterness, not in haste, but in clarity. You begin to ask not, how do I make this happen? But, is this mine to carry? Is this part of my flow? And if it is, the energy comes. The doors open. The steps appear, and if it isn't, the silence remains. Not as punishment, but as protection. Because the silence knows what your ego has forgotten, that what is meant for you will not need to be dragged. It will move with you. It will match your pace. It will feel not like a conquest, but like a return. This doesn't mean there will be no challenge. Flow is not the absence of effort. It is the absence of resistance to what matters. You will still rise early. You will still work. You will still face fear and fatigue. But you will no longer waste energy on what isn't aligned. You will no longer spend your life swimming upstream against yourself. You will begin to trust timing. You will begin to rest without guilt. You will begin to say no, not out of defense, but out of devotion to your direction. And most of all, you will begin to recognize the feeling of alignment, like a quiet yes humming beneath the surface of every true decision. Let that be your compass. Let silence become not just your refuge, but your guide. When something feels forced, pause. Return to silence. Wait until it flows again. When something feels off, don't argue with yourself. Listen. There is no need to explain your intuition to anyone. It is not logic. It is not theory. It is not a strategy built in fear. It is the voice of life itself, speaking in the only language it has ever known, rhythm. This is what it means to live in flow, not to have all the answers, but to know when something feels real, not to control every outcome, but to keep your inner river clean so that what needs to move can move. And when you live this way, others will notice. They may not understand it. They may think you are lucky or even passive, but you will know. This is not passivity. It is participation in something greater than your plans. Something that includes you, but does not depend on you. Something ancient, something intelligent, something alive. Call it grace, call it spirit, call it the Tao, call it flow. But whatever you call it, know this. It is always waiting beneath the noise. It is always flowing beneath the tension. And it is always moving in your favor, if you are quiet enough to feel it. There is a moment in every journey when the traveler stops needing the map, when the seeking softens, when the questions grow still, when presence becomes so natural, so deep, that it no longer requires effort. It just is. This is what it means to become fluent in silence. Silence is no longer a refuge you escape to when overwhelmed. It is the ground beneath your every step. It is the pulse beneath your words. It is the breath between your thoughts. It is the shape of your life. Not as something you control, but as something you trust. To become fluent in silence is not to withdraw from the world. It is to be fully in it, but no longer owned by it. No longer swayed by every wave of noise. No longer rattled by urgency or chaos. You are still. And from that stillness, you move. You speak less, but your words carry weight. You react less, but your presence commands respect. You do less, but what you do flows with purpose. And when you choose to be silent, it is no longer seen as absence. It is understood as power. The world may never stop making noise. It will continue to rush, to shout, to sell, to compare, to distract. But you no longer have to match its pace, because the rhythm you move with now comes from somewhere deeper. Your silence has become wisdom. It has become discernment. It has become a kind of language that others feel, even if they don't understand it. You will notice it in small ways. The way you enter a room. The way you pause before responding. You fall loose. The way others begin to soften around you, because something in them recognizes the peace you carry. You fall loose, not a performance, not a posture. Just truth, rooted, grounded, unshaken. And in this way, you become not just fluent in silence. You become a space of silence in a world that desperately needs one. You listen without rushing. You love without clinging. You create without forcing. You lead without shouting. And when things break, and they will, you do not panic. You return to silence. You return to breath. You return to that quiet place that cannot be broken, because it was never made of noise. This is not perfection. This is not detachment. The turn to breathe was not about becoming untouchable. Asar is returnable. It is about becoming undefended. It is about being so fully present that even your vulnerability becomes sacred. Fluency in silence means you now trust what cannot be explained. You move with intuition. You rest without guilt. You say no without drama. Nayad, you say yes without fear. Nayad Dayad, you are not above the world, but you are beneath it, like roots that hold fast, even in the storm. And when you fall, and you fall gently, because silence will catch you. Because silence has become your home. Let this be your final remembering. You do not need to chase peace. You do not need to earn stillness. You only need to return to what has always been waiting underneath all the noise. The still, soft, intelligent quiet that has always been yours. Let your life speak with fewer words. Let your presence say what cannot be said. Let your silence become your signature. The way you walk, the way you love, the way you choose what matters and let go of what doesn't. Because when you are fluent in silence, life doesn't just move around you. It begins to move through you. And that is the truest kind of power.